Hey everyone, it's Aaron here, and welcome back to the AI Alpha Insider Show. After the incredible success of our first episode, we've got some exciting news. Our show has been officially confirmed for a full season. Thank you. That's right. You can now catch new episodes every Monday and Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So set those alarms because we've got a lot more to explore. Now, without further ado, let's dive right into today's episode. Please put your hands together for your hosts, Albert and Isabel.
Ever tried to buy a coffee recently? I swear, the price jumps like $5 every time I turn around.
It's not just you, trust me. Everything's gotten kind of crazy expensive lately.
Yeah, and it feels like every day there's a new headline about inflation going wild. So for this deep dive, we're digging into COVIDConomics, Taming Inflation. So we've got a really interesting mix of voices tackling this.
That's awesome. Having different perspectives always helps, especially with something as complex as inflation.
Totally. So instead of just diving into solutions, the book really tries to diagnose the problem first. They keep using the word complication, almost like they're saying inflation isn't the root problem in itself.
That's exactly what they're getting at. They're making the point that it's more like a symptom of something bigger.
I see.
They compare it to, like, imagine your body spiking a fever. You wouldn't just try to treat the fever itself, right?
You'd want to find out what's causing it.
Exactly. So COVIDConomics, it argues that inflation, it's like that fever, a sign of a deeper global imbalance.
Okay, I'm with you so far. What would you say is that underlying cause then? What's throwing things off balance?
They have a name for it, desynchronization.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that, think about the global economy, all its moving parts. Before COVID hit, it was like this well-oiled machine. Goods were produced, shipped out, consumed. Everything was pretty much in sync.
Yeah.
COVID, the lockdowns, the whole thing, it basically threw a wrench in that machine.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're dealing with the fallout. Shortages, delays, and of course, you guessed it, inflation.
So it's not just about supply and demand anymore. It's about the timing of it all getting thrown off.
100%.
Yeah.
A really good example they use is the chip shortage. I mean, who would have thought that a tiny little computer chip could bring car manufacturing to a standstill worldwide?
Right.
But it happened. It's a perfect example of how one disruption can have this massive ripple effect. Suddenly there's a backlog, prices skyrocket.
And you're stuck paying a premium for a used car that's older than your phone.
Exactly.
Wild.
Boy.
Okay, so we've got this whole desynchronization thing happening. But then COVIDConomics takes it a step further. They talk about inflation being a crowd phenomenon driven by fear. That's kind of wild. What's that all about?
It's really interesting, actually. They argue that, traditional economics, it often misses that human element.
Right.
Remember back at the start of the pandemic when everyone was hoarding toilet paper?
Oh, yeah. Empty shelves everywhere.
Exactly. And it wasn't just toilet paper. People were panic buying everything. There's like this fear of scarcity. It's contagious.
Makes sense.
We see prices going up and we think, I better stock up now before it gets even worse. And that just feeds the cycle. Demand goes up even more, prices follow, and it just spirals.
And now with everything so interconnected, that fear can spread globally in like seconds.
Exactly. The book uses the war in Ukraine as a prime example. Even in countries that aren't directly impacted by the conflict, you see this surge in inflation. Why? Because of that fear. Fear of energy shortages, fear of rising prices. It's psychological.
Wow. So it's not just about actual shortages, but the perception of shortages. That's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is. And you have to factor in the historical context, too. Think about the Community Reinvestment Act, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, even the 2008 financial crisis. All of these events led to increased government spending.
Which on the surface isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right. But it meant injecting huge amounts of money into the economy.
Yeah.
And when you have more money chasing the same amount of goods...
Inflation's inevitable.
Exactly. The value of each dollar goes down. It's like that game, what's it called? Hot potato.
Yeah. Hot potato, someone's going to get burned.
Right. So COVIDConomics, it lays out this pretty bold solution, nationalizing the energy sector.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my eye. Nationalizing energy. It feels kind of radical, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But their argument's pretty interesting. They point to examples like Hydro-Quebec in Canada. It's a state-owned energy company, and they've been incredibly successful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. providing affordable energy to citizens, reinvesting profits back into the community.
So they're saying instead of being at the mercy of these crazy global oil prices, we take control, create a more stable energy market.
Exactly. They call it the buffer model.
Yeah.
Basically, creating a buffer between everyday people and the volatility of the global market.
Okay, I like where this is going. Tell me more about this buffer model. How would it actually work?
So they propose setting up this national energy agency. They call it Energy Canada. And basically, this agency would manage the whole shebang.
So Energy Canada swoops in, buys up all the energy from our own producers, sets a fair price, and then makes sure it gets to us, the consumers, at a price that makes sense.
Exactly. And the key here is stability. Like, imagine gas prices hovering around, say, $1.05 a liter year after year.
No more panicking every time something happens on the other side of the world.
Exactly. Businesses, regular folks like you and me, everyone can plan for the future with a lot more certainty.
It would be a huge weight off everyone's shoulders. But hold on, this Energy Canada thing, wouldn't that mean a massive government agency calling the shots? Isn't that like the opposite of what we want if we're talking about efficiency?
I get what you're saying. And yeah, the book does address that. They know it could get bogged down in bureaucracy. But they argue that if it's done right, with a clear focus on keeping things streamlined, the long-term benefits, especially that whole stability thing we were talking about, it would outweigh the risks. Plus, there's this whole other part of their proposal that's designed to, like, put the power back in the hands of everyday people. They call it the Liberty Model.
Liberty Model. Okay, now you're speaking my language. What's that all about?
So picture this. Energy Canada with all its profits. Because remember, we're talking about a nationalized energy sector now. Those profits, instead of just vanishing into the ether, they get distributed directly to citizens, like dividends.
Wait, hold the phone. You're saying everyone gets a cut of the energy pie? Like, we're all Energy Canada shareholders now.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's this really radical idea of linking the success of the energy sector directly to the well-being of every citizen.
Shared ownership, shared responsibility. I like it.
Exactly.
So not only are we talking about lower, more predictable energy costs, but we're also talking about a direct financial benefit for every single person. This sounds less like an economic policy and more like a complete societal shift. What kind of impact do they see this having in the long run?
They actually touch on that. It could be huge for getting younger generations involved in what's happening on a national level, even tackling things like demographic imbalances. I mean, some people are even saying this could be a way to fund social programs, maybe even invest heavily in renewable energy infrastructure.
So we're talking about fighting climate change and putting money directly into people's pockets at the same time. That's thinking big.
And it goes back to their whole point about shifting our mindset.
Yeah.
You know, instead of always focusing on scarcity and competition, what if we start thinking about abundance and collaboration? We're all in this together, right?
Totally. Well, I've got to say, COVIDConomics definitely doesn't shy away from bold ideas. But even beyond the specifics, the nationalization, the Liberty Model, it feels like the core message here is a call to action. We need to rethink our whole relationship with energy with each other.
100%. We need to start asking, what if? What if we could actually solve these massive problems? Inflation, climate change, inequality. What if we could build a better future?
Now, those are questions worth asking. If any of this has piqued your interest, I highly recommend checking out COVIDConomics, Taming Inflation. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a dense read. But it's packed with really insightful analysis and these super thought-provoking solutions. Really makes you think.
It reminds us that even when things seem bleak, we're capable of amazing things when we work together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's a wrap for this Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay curious, and most importantly, keep those conversations going.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Before we go, let me tell you about COVIDConomics. Co-written by Dr. Bak Nguyen, the world record-holding author and serial entrepreneur. He's joined by André Chatelain, former first vice president of Desjardins, who oversaw $100 billion each year. They're also teamed up with economist and banker François Dufour, entrepreneur Tranie Vo, and a next-gen voice, 12-year-old William Bak, Dr. Bak's son, and a world record holder himself. COVIDConomics is available now on Amazon, Apple Books, and Barnes & Noble across 51 countries. And here's the kicker. A 5-part docu-series is coming soon, so be sure to check it out. That's it for this episode, but stay tuned for the next one. It's packed with excitement as we dive into social media strategies and how to leverage them for growth. Mark it down, Monday and Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern. It's the AI Alpha Insider Show. I'm Aaron, and welcome to the Alphas.